Maison Ikkoku is a fantastic and enjoyable classic. The series is utterly hilarious with fantastic comedy everywhere. There is completely hilarious humor at almost every part of this narrative. At the same time, it's also a down-to-earth and completely realistic show. The show takes place in a regular common setting and is completely realistic fiction. Even though the series has fantastic comedy, it also has deep and serious drama. The drama manages to be serious and weighty without being too dark. The series is a coming-of-age story that is also about coming to terms with loss. Overall, the series is completely realistic and light if you want a down-to-earth and fun show. Maison Ikkoku is about the lives of the tenants who live in the Maison Ikkoku apartment building. The apartment is an old rundown building providing cheap accommodations for tenants. The series stars Yusaku Godai, a college student, and Kyoko Otonashi, the manager of the apartment building. At first, Godai has trouble getting into college and has to study to try to pass the entrance exams to qualify for acceptance. The story begins by focusing on his life as a rejected student, desperately trying to pass the qualifying exams and get accepted into college. Godai is eventually accepted into university, and the story continues and focuses on his life as a college student. Kyoko Otonashi is the daughter-in-law of the building's owner and the manager of the apartment building. She is a widow. Her husband, the owner's son, died recently, less than 1 year after they were married. An interesting focus of the story is even though she's a widow, she is still very young. The story often focuses on the tension between Kyoko's grief as a widow and reluctance to move on from her former husband, with the possibility of her having new romantic relationships and moving on with her life in that sense. In addition to the main characters, the story also focuses on the wacky hijinks the other tenants of the building get up to. The series was written by Rumiko Takahashi. Takahashi is notable for the large number of major works she's done that have had a big influence on the manga and anime industries. She's written a large number of different works throughout her long career. She was born in 1957 and was a huge fan of manga and anime since she was little. She made her debut with the publication of Those Selfish Aliens in Shonen Sunday in 1978. Soon after, she began publication of her first major work, and hit Urusei Yatsura in that same year. Other major works she's done over the years are Mermaid Saga in 1984, Ranma 1/2 in 1987, Inuyasha in 1996, Ren Ni in 2009, and Mao in 2019. Mermaid Saga and Mao remain incomplete as of the writing of this video. All these works, except Mao, have had anime adaptations. In addition, she's done a large number of one-shots and short stories, many of which have had anime adaptations. A huge number of subsequent manga artists have been greatly influenced and inspired by her work. When Rumiko Takahashi began Maison Ikkoku, it was her second major work to begin after Urusei Yatsura. Takahashi worked on both series at the same time, with them premiering concurrently in different magazines. Urusei Yatsura was an absurdist fantasy anime about aliens and Japanese myths and legends. It stars a boy, Artaru Moriboshi, who accidentally gets engaged to an alien princess with superpowers. The series centered around fantasy scenarios, magic, and unrealistic powers to drive the plot. The series premiered in Shonen Sunday, a magazine aimed at older children. In contrast, Maison Ikkoku would be a more grounded and realistic series. Maison Ikkoku would be an entirely realistic work aimed at an adult audience, in contrast to all her other works which feature unrealistic fantasy elements and are aimed at younger audiences. The manga was published bi-weekly between November 15th, 1980, and its final chapter on April 20th, 1987. The series is 161 chapters long. The series was compiled into 15 books for post-magazine publication. The time and date of the story advance in real time along with the publication. Each chapter takes place around the same time the chapter premieres in the publication. The plot advances in real time with the publication of the story in the real world. The manga premiered in Big Comet Spirits, Big Comet Spirits was at the time a bi-weekly publication aimed at adult men. The manga was launched by Shokugan, the publishing company which publishes Shonen Sunday, the magazine in which Takahashi was premiering Yurusa Yatsura. Shokugan wanted to launch a new magazine aimed at the adult demographic, and Takahashi was asked to join the magazine at its inception. Takahashi was part of the original group of manga artists that launched Big Comet Spirits and premiered their stories in its first issue. Takahashi was part of a group of 13 artists selected to launch the magazine. The anime premiered in 1986 and lasted until 1988. The series had 96 episodes. In addition, a television movie and 3 OVAs were made. The OVAs were made in 1988, 1991, and 1992. The series was made by Studio Dean, who had previously made the second half of the Yurusa Yatsura anime, and so were a natural choice to adopt its companion series. Maison Ikkoku premiered 1 week after Yurusa Yatsura ended in the same time slot on the same channel, Fuji TV, on March 26, 1986. The anime broadly adopts the manga faithfully, though it does cut out some sections due to time constraints. The biggest difference between the manga and the anime is that the setting is updated from the early 80s to the late 80s to match when the anime premiered. It's most notably visible in Shun's car. In the manga, the car is a 1980 Nissan Silva, while in the anime, it's a 1987 Nissan Sentra. It's just kind of funny that the 5-year gap between the adaptation occurring is at the same time as the very notable change in car design. The anime features a stunning soundtrack. The anime has a total of 5 openings and 6 endings. The anime continued to run about a year after the manga concluded, meaning the anime was able to adopt the manga's ending in its original run. Maison Ikkoku has a large cast of characters with colorful personalities. Yusaku Godai is the main character, a young college student trying to find his way through life. He's a straight man who has to put up with the wacky hijinks of the other tenants, and he has a crush on the manager Kyoko. Kyoko Otonashi is the manager of the Maison Ikkoku apartment building and daughter-in-law of the owner. She is widowed and getting over the death of her recently deceased husband. Sorichio Otonashi is Kyoko's mysterious deceased husband. He was a teacher at the school she went to, which is how they met. The owner, or Mr. Otonashi, is the owner of the Maison Ikkoku apartment building, Sorichio's father, and Kyoko's father-in-law. Shun Mitaka is a tennis coach Kyoko takes tennis lessons from, who is also interested in Kyoko. He is Godai's main rival for Kyoko. He has a fear of dogs and a striking smile. Yatsua is a mischievous tenant at Maison Ikkoku, Godai's neighbor, who is infamous for playing pranks on other tenants. He is more formal, mysterious, and elusive. No one knows what he does for a living. Hane Ichinose is an older lady and mother of Kentaro, who also lives at the Maison Ikkoku complex. She's a gossipy middle-aged woman. Akeme Ropponagi is a sultry young lady who lives in the building and is neighbors with Godai. She works as a waitress at a local bar. Kentaro Ichinose is a little kid and Hanae Ichinose's son. Following their success with Rama 1/2, Viz Media released Maison Ikkoku in North America. The series was first released in monthly chapters in the magazine Animerica before being published in books. The first Viz release of Maison Ikkoku was published from 1993 to 2000. Some chapters were missing, and others were out of order in the first release. Viz re-released the series with all chapters in the original chapter order from 2003 to 2006. Viz released the anime on VHS and DVD from 1996 to 2006. The subtitles VHS were completed in 2001. The dub was completed on DVD in 2006. The English dub was done by the Ocean Group, the same studio that had dubbed Ranma One Half and Inuyasha. There was a long hiatus in the release of the dub from 1999 to 2004. In 2020, Viz began re-releasing Maison Ikkoku in a new edition.